Hi, this is JP Newman on Investing on Purpose, and today we are speaking with my co-host Ryan Daniel Moran about his CapCon or Capitalism Conference that is coming up. In this episode, Ryan is going to tell us not only about the origin of his conference, but really the deep purpose of what the conference is about, bringing community and freedom together through money. Just a really interesting way to think about it, which Ryan and I go really deep and I've never discussed before. I hope you enjoy the episode. Ryan.
Hey, man.
I cannot believe, first of all, you look very nice today.
Well, you know, when you've got it, flaunt it. You know? Also, this is a Target shirt.
It's
$21, you know, clearance rack.
And when I came in today to this podcast, I know I'm leaving overseas and today is the last day, but I kind of forgot that you have today, the biggest day of the year for you, Capcom, is exactly 24 hours away. I can't believe you're with me right now.
It's our Super Bowl. The Capitalism Conference. This is our sixth one.
Yeah.
So CapCon is this week, and I'm a ball of nerves.
I bet.
And I'm also excited, and I have this weird sense of I can't even talk. That's how I feel. Everything that could go wrong has gone wrong.
Yes.
And it's going to be fine. It's going to be amazing.
Yeah.
It's funny how things just end up working out, even though behind the scenes, there's so much chaos that is happening. A speaker canceled last minute.
Yeah.
One of our team members is in the hospital
last
minute.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So some things have happened.
Does it get easier year by year? You mentioned this is your sixth one. Does it get easier year by year because you've kind of used to the chaos, or is it still the same pit of nerve in your stomach every time?
Some things get easier and some things get harder. So the things that get easier, you know, you don't worry so much about the last minute things that are going to go. Like we had a speaker cancel. We put something new together. It's going to be great. It's going to work out and everyone's going to love it. There are also some things that are harder. Like, we've already done these topics for 3 years, or we've had these speakers. We got to dig a little bit deeper to see how we're going to outdo last year.
Right.
So there's a lot more planning as you get moving on them. Selling tickets gets easier. Meeting a budget gets harder.
Yeah.
So some things get easier and some things get harder. The thing that has been hardest for me this year so far is now I give a keynote every year, and I'm in such a transitionary phase of my career right now that has been hard for me to think about how we're gonna do something that really wows the audience.
Yeah.
And then this man over here, the guy behind the camera, asked me the most amazing question. We were sitting on the couch last week, and he asked me this question, or maybe this was 2 weeks ago, and he says, "Hey, why does the word capitalism matter to you?" And I said, "You're gonna love this." I said, without even thinking, I said, "Capitalism is the perfect blending of freedom and community." Freedom is your own personal desire to create and to not be held back and to serve, but it's empty without community, without you knowing the context of how you serve other people, of how you have a place in the world, knowing what your standing is in a group of people. Freedom is just an empty room. It's just like an undesigned room with no couch, nothing on the walls. There's nothing to enjoy. There's nothing to create.
And yet so many people chase financial freedom.
Yes.
But to your point, without the community or the purpose, it can be a very
and then
shallow
they wonder
spot.
why they're lonely and depressed and addicts. Because they got one part of it. But they didn't get the other part of it. But the other extreme is just as dangerous, because if you have community but you have no freedom, then you just have forced servitude. Or you have
which is most
communism.
Of the world, the condition of most of the world.
That's exactly right.
$1 a day, $2. Actually, I think it's $2.15 a day is like considered poverty.
They don't have freedom.
No.
Right? They might have community, but they don't have freedom. And they might actually be net happier. But they don't have the growth. They don't have the opportunity. They don't have the ability to create new things.
So it's kind of like indentured servitude.
Yes.
It really is. It's like a slavery of kinds, just because the government, the political systems don't necessarily allow it. And I want to take a step back, because not everyone knows what Capitalism Conference is or Capcom. Remember, I met you at one of your early Capcoms, and I walked in a room of 1,000 people, and you were the shiny star. I'm like, this guy interviews like no one. You're shredding. You have what was the water guy from Africa?
Of course, it was water.org.
Water.org. Peter Diamandis. I mean, this was a couple. But
the
this
water
is
guy. The water guy. This is embarrassing.
This is charity water.
Charity water. Yes.
It's charity water.
Tim Urban. Tim Urban? No, he's wait, but why? This is embarrassing.
Well, I just
but charity
but here's
water.
What I remember. I didn't know you, and I walk into your conference, and it wasn't just the Peter Diamandis. But
sorry, we give to Operation Underground Railroad now instead of charity water. Everybody was supporting charity water. We moved over to OUR.
So I want to ask you a question for those who don't know in our audience what the capitalism or Capcom as you call it is. First of all, tell us what it is and why'd you start it in the first place, and where is it going for you? What is
I started the Capitalism Conference purely selfishly because I had outgrown my peer group and I needed to get a new peer group, and so I just decided that I had $500,000 in retained earnings in my business, and I decided that I was going to risk it all on a conference where I invited the people that I wanted to learn from to come speak, and then hopefully I could offset the cost by selling tickets, and some people would come. But it was purely selfish.
Wow.
So I was like, I mean, I've outgrown everybody that I hang out with. Wow. I have $1 million business.
Wow.
That was literally where I was. I had $1 million business, and I was like, I need to get around some higher level people. And so,
you could have just bought a ticket to someone else's conference.
I probably could.
You didn't need to create your own conference and go risk $500,000.
But I'm an entrepreneur. It's got to be harder. So I just made this list of all the people that I wanted to hang out with, and I just started inquiring about their speaking fees, and I started booking them.
Wow.
Gary Vaynerchuk was the first person I booked. That was in 2015. This is before he was, as big as he is now.
You probably couldn't get him for the same speaker fee.
That is true. It's 5x since then. I called Grant Cardone. That's a story on its own.
Wow, I'd love to hear on that.
Yeah, I've told that story a couple of times. I booked somebody from Robert Herjavec from Shark Tank. And then it started to become like a thing, right? I just started talking about it and tickets started to sell. And so then it was like, I should probably hire for some help for this. And it went so well that I decided to do it again. And then we rebranded to Capitalism. And now it's been, this is our 6th year doing it.
Incredible. So what's in it for you now? You're 6 years later into this. You've had an amazing guest. I'm going to Egypt tomorrow because of you, because of Capcom, because of the speaker that you had, Mickey, that we've interviewed on the show. Because I heard her speak and I was so blown away, I approached her after her speech at Capcom.
If you call it Capcom one more time,
capitalism.com.
My head is going to explode.
What's the acronym?
Capcom. The Capitalism Conference.
Oh, sorry. I'm in trouble. I haven't called it Capcom.
Sorry, I forgot charity water. So
okay, so we're even.
We're even, yeah.
Capcom. C-O-N. I got it.
Capitalism Conference, yes.
So the Capitalism Conference. So I know how impactful it's been for me. It's like, as a spectator, not only have I heard great speeches, not only have I been inspired, but it's actually like, of course, we don't have this podcast, but it's really changed the trajectory of my life. And I've just been great. And I'm just the passive, not the internet marketer who's attended this. So 6 years later, you've totally blown this thing up. You're getting amazing speakers. So why do you still do it? Like, why go through the stress? Why go through the energy of putting together such a well-curated conference?
It's funny. Every year we look at each other and we're like, should we do that again? It's so much work. And it's so hard to sell tickets. Yeah. I mean, now at this point, like, we sold out a month in advance, but this was the first time that we were able to kind of not effortlessly, but without pressure, sell out way in advance.
Yeah.
It was the least pressured sales pitch I've had to do for this, but we work for 6 months for basically no money.
Yeah. And you put down tons of your own money for deposits, for speakers.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you're out, I'm sure 6 digits getting this thing.
So we look at each other and we're like, are we going to do that again? And we always say, let's wait 3 months and see. And so if Capcom was our primary source of business, like if we had to make it a profit center, we would have every year booked in a year in advance, but we don't do that. Our events are about 18 months apart. And that's because we spend about 3 months after the event.
You'll never do it again.
and then about 4 months go by and we're like, oh yeah, we're doing it again. It's like when you forget how awful the first year of having a child is, and you're like, I want another one. And it's the same thing with having an event. But
what is it for you now? Because before it was to meet these people. Yeah. Now you meet these people, you interview them. Yeah. So what's in it for you now?
Because there is something magical that happens in 2 days when you get a group of entrepreneurs who are focused on growth personally and professionally in one room and you watch them serve each other.
Yeah.
JP, more than anything, I want to build a community of capitalists. Back to this point about freedom and community.
Yeah.
Freedom was what I always wanted. And you've told the story of when you started having some financial success, you felt the emptiness on the other side of it. I felt that too.
Yeah.
I wanted community more than anything.
Yeah.
And I felt like anytime I went to somebody else's event or somebody else's mastermind, it was just so full of ego that there was no real connection that happened. There was the posturing connection of like, we should hang out because we can do business together.
Right.
But something that I'm really proud of at our events is there are people worth well over $100 million. And there are people who are just starting out and you don't know who's who until the second day.
Yeah.
You cannot tell who's from who until people start talking about it. And by then you've already hung out and you've broken the ice.
Yeah.
And there's no ego separating that. We're the only community that I know of where people can come up with their idea, get funded and mentored, have an exit, and then come back and serve the next group.
That's great.
And at CapCon, you watch it happen in person. I had some team members that joined during COVID or, between end of 2019 until mid 2021, had never seen a CapCon. Alex, you had never seen a CapCon for like 2 years, for like a year and a half at least, right? And I'm like, you don't even know. You don't even know what happens. And then everybody comes into one room and you just watch the transformations of people and people working together. And so the reason I do it is because I deep down want community more than anything else.
Yeah.
And I think the transformation I'm going through right now
Yeah.
is sort of owning my position in the marketplace is I'm the pastor for entrepreneurs.
I think it's a great way to say it, Ryan. I totally see you the same way, by the way.
I've always kind of run from that, resisted that.
When you say it, I'm like, of course you are.
I'm just the pastor for entrepreneurs.
I think you are. I think that's right.
And I didn't want to like own that.
Yeah.
But it's when I'm happiest is when I just embrace the fact that at least part of my purpose here is to bring that group of people together and to serve that flock.
Yeah. Ryan, I realize you've heard me say a bunch of times, like the story about how I came to your first CapCon conference.
Yeah.
I'm getting good at this. And I keep saying how you blew me away with your interviewing style, but I realized as from this conversation, it wasn't your interviewing style. It was your authenticity. It was because that you came from a place of wanting to create a community where a lot of times you go to these conferences and they're just trying to like, it's like hype, like 7 digits to this. It came from a different place. So I think maybe the secret sauce that I just didn't really realize of what makes you so good, it's the intention of where you're coming from. I mean, you are a good speaker and a good interviewer, but it's also intention. And when this is the first time in this conversation when we've never talked about freedom and community being like, I love that. Right? I've never really heard of that reference before. And I think it's powerful. I think it's amazing.
So 2 points to that. One, you have been a good friend of telling me when I get out of alignment there.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because you said a lot of times you see people like the 7 steps to, and you've seen videos of me and be like, that was a little 7-steppy, Ryan.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, you're right. I don't know why I go into that,
but
I know you're right. And it's because that's when I feel disconnected from community or I forget that I value community.
Yeah.
That is when I go into like, here are the 4 secrets to make, and it just falls flat and I look like everybody else.
Right.
But when I'm thinking,
because that's what the rest of the world is peddling.
Exactly. Yes. Now, this idea of freedom and community merging together, you're going to love this, JP. I was at an event when I was 21 years old. I had just graduated college. This is 2009 or 2010. And there were 25 people at this event. And there was someone who came in and ran the whole group through this exercise. I don't even remember what it was called. It was like called the Heart's Purpose or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And it was writing down all of the memories that you had in which you got goosebumps, in which you felt like this is how the world is supposed to be. And then the same way you wrote down all the experiences you could think of that made you just like resistant. This isn't how it's supposed to be. And in weaving those together, you shared your list with the group that was around you. And you kind of help them, they help you pull out these words, of descriptive words of, it sounds like this is important to you. And you'd either be like, no, that's not how I describe it. And you would sort of flesh out the words that triggered you or that made you feel like everything is right in the world. And some people came out with these very descriptive sentences that were like, I'm committed to the liberation of women in Ghana, Africa. It was things like that, right? Mine was very simple. It was, I'm committed to freedom and community. And that was it. And I haven't thought about that exercise for 10 years. And then when Alex over here asks me, why does capitalism matter to you? I'm like, it's the perfect combination of freedom and community. And it was like, that's it.
How cool
that's like,
is that?
That's okay. I resonate with this 100%. And now I want to bring that to my events and to
Love it.
my podcasts and to everything that I do.
You know, Ryan, the fact that you got the URL for capitalism.com, and you've told me the story once of how you did it, but isn't it interesting that you got it? Like, of all people, like, that is a very valuable thing. And you just were in the right place at the right time. You bought it, at a time when you can get it. But now when you tell the story about the freedom and community, it's like, of course you got it. Because right? Because at 21, you dreamed this up, whether you knew it or not. I mean, I know it's been a little woo-woo, but like, you declared it at 21, and now you're just saying, and of course, what channel? You can do it through the church as a pastor. You could do it through capitalism, through economic currency as a pastor too.
And if I had stayed in the church that overvalues community versus
abundance,
right? I would probably be a very I would be the Joel Osteen who's preaching like a prosperity gospel, right? And I'd be blackballed by everybody that I grew up with. But for me, the perfect marriage of growth and joy is when you are fully plugged in and you're operating from abundance. Yeah. And those two things go so hand in hand. And if you starve one from the other, you lose both.
Yeah. Yogananda, who's a great guru, always said, if you could take the wealth from the West and the spirituality from the East and put them together, you'd have the perfect society, or the perfect community, which is a lot of what you're saying right now. It's like, you need both. It does take currency. It does take money. It's just the reality. If you're in scarcity, it's hard to do a lot. But we know that without the grounding of a community, it's called spirituality, connectedness. They're both empty. They're both hollow apart, but together they create the perfect combination.
And part of me wants to say, well, then is it just contrast? Meaning when you feel deprived of one, you create more of the other and you go back and forth. But I don't think that's helpful for me to think about. Like, I have to assume that you can have an abundance of both opportunity, freedom, and community. And I think that when you see yourself in the context of a group of people, you serve more, you give more, you create more, and therefore you receive more. But when you pull yourself out of that and you're operating alone, you instead project. Like you say, I need to create something great in order to be seen, recognized, to be great, whatever. Yeah. But it's plugging back into that community in which you're actually able to do that.
Correct.
And so I have to believe that you can have an abundance of both of those two sides of the coin. And I think that is what capitalism provides. Yeah. I think capitalism is the opportunity for us to create in the service of others and create abundance in the process of doing so.
Completely.
That to me is what capitalism is. Whereas we tend in the West to think about it as freedom for ourselves, and its dissenters would say that it is the egoic drive taking off the backs of the less fortunate. I say no. Yeah. That is the removal of one of those two very important factors of freedom and community that capitalism so beautifully brings together.
Yeah. Which is the very spirit of the show, right? If you think investing on purpose, like when people ask me, what is this whole purpose of why we're doing the show? It is really just to awaken people and inspire people that doing the right thing, purpose, sustainability creates outsized returns. That's kind of the short answer I have. And that's exactly what you're saying. It's not one or the other when blended the right way.
And you've said that when you started to make money, you felt like there was a loss. You didn't have the community side as full as you wanted it to be. And Thrive has become this example of how you can create outsized returns when you focus on the impacts that you make.
Correct.
I'm guessing that went hand in hand somewhere. Like that's a part of your story that I don't have totally filled in my brain. Was I know you went out looking for more purpose and community, but when you started bringing that into Thrive, is that when people really started buying in to what you were doing?
It's a good question. I don't know. I mean, I would say like the path looks like I needed to make money. I had kids, diapers had to be paid. I don't know that I was more on the financial side. I need so much gas. I'm running on a quarter tank, an eighth of a tank of gas. I gotta bring home the bacon. That's all so I didn't have the luxury of thinking about, I didn't think I had the luxury of thinking about community. Okay. It's like, I had to be transactional. I had to get it done. With some abundance, even early on, and we talked about this earlier, with a little bit of abundance, I realized it wasn't scratching the itch because money alone without community. And that really is what started the journey of the pathway to look for purpose and to look for community. And then it got really clear to me because there's community, there's lots of people. So all of a sudden, for some people, you start making money, your community might be, I want to be with other people who own Porsches. I want to join the Porsche club. And that's a community, right? And some people golf, and that's a community. Country clubs are communities. That just wasn't my community.
So
there's when you define community, what does that mean to different
people?
What
I'm looking for here is, was there a point for you? Because I've had this where you've realized that pursuing more money isn't going to fill up whatever it is that you're looking for.
Definitely.
And then there's a sense of like, I don't even care anymore. I'm just going to find out what lights me up. Like I'm just going to give to other people. Like I'm just going to serve. It's almost like you get smacked around enough to you where you're humbled enough to serve.
Yes.
But
I don't think that's everyone's journey. I think if you're lucky, you get to go through that journey or having the awakening or the awareness. It sucks, right? It's painful to be slapped around. I've done it too. It's horrible.
When you did have moments in which you were like, okay, I'm going to think about service and creating value for other people. Was that actually a turning point for Thrive?
I was already starting to get momentum, but the company has grown 10x since then. So I couldn't tell you the exact number. There was some rocket fuel started, but then it grew 10x. Was it because I changed the name of the company? I literally changed the name of the company, rebranded the company. Was it the name? Was it the spirit? Or was it my time? I don't know. But if you kind of look at the law of attraction, coming at it from a different place rather than coming from this transaction, I got to make money to bring home enough money to pay the bills, where you can get to the point where you kind of get to surrender that to, what am I actually doing every day? Can I serve something bigger? And not just like where I'm actually creating accretive outcomes for everybody, for all the stakeholders, and not just for myself. It was a huge paradigm shift. The company's grown hugely since then. So I don't know if it was the chicken or the egg, Ryan, to be honest.
You have a nonprofit. Mm-hmm. You throw these investor appreciation parties. I can't imagine there being investors in that room who aren't in there because they believe that they're participating in something much bigger than just getting 16% year over year.
I would think that's right.
Like there are people there, because when you speak about the broader mission of Thrive, people resonate with that. And even if it were to make 13% versus somebody else going 19%, they'd say, I still feel better about being a Thrive.
Right.
And I have witnessed that being at some of those parties and meeting some of your peers. And it seems to me that I would assume that when you had that flip to thinking about more creation, that you were able to go bigger because of the people that you attracted to you.
I think that's absolutely true. You know what's weird, Ryan? I don't think about it. I just almost don't want to think about it because then it gets transactional.
Oh, that's a good point.
So I don't want to be like, because then it kind of puts a motive to it. Oh, if I do this, then the messaging will get me this. I maybe in some ways I purposely almost put like a little firewall. But as you say it, I would say that's true.
Okay, so this is what I'm going to take away from that. This week is CapCon, and I know internally I'm going through this transition that you've talked about before, right? I've had this point in which I just want to create, right? I just want to serve, and I just want to do well by my people. I feel that happening, but you are so right that if I think about it, it does become transactional.
Yeah.
So I am going to, just for this week, allow myself to just think about creating an amazing experience for everyone who's going to be there.
I think it's great.
Without trying to make it something, without trying to see where it's going.
Right.
And if I go in that direction, because I probably will,
yeah,
I'll rein it back in and remember this conversation.
I think it's great. Ryan.
And I'm just going to show up and think about how I can give to this community with, pour as much of my cup into theirs.
Yeah.
And I suspect that my cup will stay full as a result of that.
I think your cup will get much fuller. I really do, Ryan. I want to let you know from this conversation, I'm really excited about this idea. I love the idea of not only just the pastor of capitalism. I love that title and even your reluctant story to get there. But what you're providing, and also you're the right person to provide it. It wasn't a coincidence that it's you. It wasn't a coincidence that you had that thing when you were 21. It wasn't a coincidence that you got capitalism.com. It all is this beautiful journey that I actually think we're in a moment right now, Ryan, a day before your show, that it's the perfect, and whether you're just with your declaration, you are the right person to create this wonderful community for everybody. And you're the right person. And from it, your cup will go, we're going to laugh about this. We'll listen to the show again and you're going to laugh because I wholeheartedly believe and feel that's the case.
Well, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Well, then, peace be upon you.
Peace be upon you.
May the grace of God always be in your favor.
What do you say? What do you say with Star Trek? Nanu Nanu or something? Live and prosper, Ryan Moran. Live and prosper.
I'm still learning the whole pastor for entrepreneurs thing. I'm still getting my bearings here. I just figured out that that's my purpose.
That's awesome. We just witnessed a birth, ladies and gentlemen, of Ryan Daniel Moran.
All right, it's getting weird. Thanks for watching, everybody.
Should we squirt some water at you?
No, we just go deuces.
Deuces.